Welcome back to the Pendulum Podcast. I am your host, Drew Gurton, and today I have the owner of Rosebud Coffee, Dan Davidson. Dan is also a member of ours, and I'm really excited to kind of share his story and let you guys get to know about him and like what his business brings to Pasadena as well. And so Dan, thanks for being here.
Yeah, Drew, glad to be here.
Tell us a little about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. So, my main job here is I pastor a church in Pasadena called Rose City Church. Church I reopened or restarted, 8 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So, I've been in Pasadena 10, so I feel like it's home for me. And then got the church up and running 8 years ago. And it's a restart, so it's a building, but it didn't have any people. They had closed it down.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a church that started 1888 and went until 2008, so 120 years.
Crazy.
Yeah. So I came in 2010, 2009, and reopened it. So that's how I got into my work here in Pasadena. It quickly evolved, though. So not only pastoring the church, but I also founded and manage Rosebud Coffee. Backstory on that real quick is just going to be, as I came in to get the church going, the first group of people I met in my neighborhood were homeless youth. And we started to take care of them. Typical ways: food, provide some safe space, clothing. But that got out of hand quickly. We had a little tent city of youth. And
at the church?
At the church.
Like in the parking lot?
Yeah, with the drum circle and the drugs and the drinking. And the neighbors calling the cops. So I quickly was overwhelmed and realized, okay, this is not the best way to help this demographic and this group that were struggling, right? These youth that were homeless. So I brought that to a close. How
much of that actually goes on here in the city? Like in Pasadena, like homeless youth, that's something that you hear about in Hollywood.
Yeah,
right?
we have a small population of homeless youth. In our last homeless count, we counted 32 youth. And that would have been out of 542 people altogether.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's actually been on the decline in Pasadena, thankfully. We've dropped our homeless count by 50% in the last 6-7 years. So we've had a major impact in that. I can talk more about that. That's work I do.
Yeah. So because I know that some of that stuff is the stuff that comes up with one of the reasons why that I asked you to be on the show.
Yeah.
But I've seen like some of the homeless people here in Pasadena that they typically stick to their areas, right? And that's like their spot. I remember when I was in grad school that it was like the same people would come to the same, and like you knew them. You knew them by name so that's what I've seen about the homeless population inside of Pasadena. But that's why like the youth part is something that I didn't really know about.
Well, actually, because the youth you don't see, they're pretty sparse, but also they know how to blend in, right? So the youth that were sleeping at night at the church, actually during the day would be over at Pasadena City College. And you wouldn't know. They just look like any other student.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so the youth that experience homelessness, you won't see them.
Okay.
Occasionally you'll see maybe one or two kind of panhandling like you would with chronic homeless.
Sure.
But really the youth, they know how to blend in and they're just kind of a part of it. But at night they got nowhere to go. So they have to find some safe space. Yeah. So we had them for about 9 months on the church property. And then after that kind of got out of hand, I was like, okay, we got to figure something else out. So I disbanded that group, and it was really cool because that pushed me to find out into the community what was happening and discovered a good number of nonprofits taking care of youth coming out of homelessness and the foster system. So I got connected with a number of nonprofits. And as I was surveying what they were doing, I realized there was still a gap of services that I could step into. And that was job training and helping the youth transition from the system that's been taking care of them into self-sufficiency and, just kind of life on their own through economic development. I ended up taking a coffee cart that had been left over before the church had closed, repurposed that with a friend of mine, and got training in coffee. And then I started to train the youth on site in the church on that coffee cart.
Crazy.
Yeah. And so what we did is, a group out of intelligentsia started a coffee company called Handsome Coffee.
Yes.
Yeah, they were awesome. They only lasted about 5 or 6 years. Anyway, they trained us in what we needed to know on coffee, built out our coffee cart. So we could make sure that we were training youth at the highest level in the coffee trade. And then I would go around and I would find, this was fun, I'd find baristas in local cafes here in Pasadena, bring them in, and then they would volunteer their expertise and their service, and I'd match them with a youth. And then they would just hang out and train for about 4 to 5 months or so together. And then from there, the youth, using our network, would land in local cafes to get jobs and kind of start life on their own.
That's really, really cool. For those of you that don't know, I am a massive
I know.
coffee fan. I know you know. And it's something that one of my friends from back home, actually he's not even from back home. We grew up like 30 minutes apart, but we met at in grad school. Like he lived above me. His wife was there at school, and we met, and we went to like the same malls, blah blah blah, and all that. The same area of town, similar life experiences, and we meet out here, which is crazy. And he got me into coffee. It started with like the French press. Then it was like
pour overs.
Then it moved to pour overs, right? And then we would watch football games together and have just like copious amounts of coffee, right? And it'd just be like overly caffeinated, and but that was awesome. But what's really sad is that people can't see this right now, but we're not drinking any coffee.
No,
but it's
just
like
water.
It's like we're getting closer to nighttime, so we're just.
Well, and I'm just 2 cups a day, so 3 o'clock is the cutoff for me.
Same.
Yeah, it's like okay.
If it goes past 3:30, it's like I'm awake. Yeah.
Getting a little too old for it. But now, did your friend go off to do Madcap?
So,
how did you connect with the Madcap guys?
So the Madcap guys came from Frank at Copa Vita. So when I used to go to Copa Vita is a coffee shop in town.
Yep.
That we have partnered with to offer our beans. And
you guys have cold brew, right?
Yep. And so we've done a collab with them. With the beans, because they also have a roastery.
Yeah.
And that I used to go when I was planning Pendulum. I used to Copa Vita had just opened. Yeah. So this is 2013.
In the Old Town location, right?
Yeah. And I would show up there when they had just opened at 7 a.m. because I had clients at 5:30 a.m. So I would show up there at 7 when I had a break. Had breakfast and get my coffee, sit there, and I would plan things out about Pendulum.
That's cool.
Systems, organization, like how I wanted things to run, and all of that was done there.
You were just doing personal training at the time?
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I got to know Frank, who is awesome. One of their guys that trains their baristas, and he's awesome. If you're listening to this, Frank, what's up, bro?
Yeah.
But anyway, so I got to know Frank, and then Frank goes, "Hey, have you ever tried? Because you're from Michigan, have you ever tried Madcap?" And I was like, "No, what's Madcap?" Because I didn't come into the coffee scene until I was out here.
Got it. Okay.
And then Madcap is in Grand Rapids, and they're amazing, and I love Madcap. And then I told Dan,
and we had him for a bit.
You gotta have Madcap at your
we brought him on for I think we had about like 9 months or so.
Yeah, it was a good run.
It was a good run.
Yeah, so
we loved it.
But anyway, so that coffee is a major player, and just to have Dan here at Pendulum as like your thing is like
a lot of collaboration.
There's a lot of collaboration, but it's also because a lot of people may not know this, but I actually did go to Fuller Seminary, graduated from Fuller Seminary.
You were in the pastor world for a bit.
I was.
Yeah, you were in my world for a bit.
I was. I was a youth pastor for quite a few years, and that ended up.
Do you not like? Is that a secret? Do you not?
It's not a secret. It's just that I, just being completely vulnerable. I don't want people to think one way of me and one way of Pendulum, and so I want people to be able to trust me and us and what we do, and not worry about anything that may. I don't want to it's not
there's
like
a lot of church baggage.
right.
Yeah, I don't want to carry that baggage. I don't carry it into the coffee shop either.
So that's
No.
it's like they're separate. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I don't want because it's like church and politics is like a thing.
Totally.
So it's like
yeah, but there is some amazing like lessons on how to create community and care for people. That you do bring that with you.
Yes,
because I've experienced that here at Pendulum.
Yes,
right. So that's one of the draws for me as a member is like the kind of culture, the community that you have.
Yes,
right. And so I can really resonate with it because I can feel and sense it, and I know part of it's maybe coming from your days from
it's
Fuller.
strategic, right? Like I know,
but it's welcoming, it's hospitable. People matter.
So what's funny is who was it? I think it was Daniel Whipple who works
for
you.
me now. Yeah. Who I met here,
yes,
by the way,
which is crazy, right?
Because
and he works for you now,
and he's going through our ordination process,
which is crazy. And what he said to me, like when he first got here, he goes, "Hey, bro, were you youth pastor at one point?" And I'm like, "Yes." And he's like, "Man, I knew it."
Yes. Well, you have the energy for it.
Sure.
I'll tell you that.
That hasn't changed. I'm still like,
you still got the energy,
strung up a little bit.
I forgot. Yeah, I met Daniel Whipple here.
Yeah,
one of the classes, and then he found our church and then got plugged in, and now he's on his way to being a pastor.
Yeah, so it's
pretty cool.
That is the part of what I want for Pendulum.
Yeah,
and what I like. One of the reasons why you are on this show right now is that you have a business, right? You have actually two. Right?
Yeah. And one on the way.
Yes. Let's go. Like, if you want to get into that, we can get into that. If it's too early. Yeah,
maybe too early, but we'll see where it goes.
But that's what I want this to be, is that in the sense of community that we are providing for each other in a way that these other local businesses can help us and we can help them in return. Yeah. And that's kind of the cool thing that now Whips, as I call him, like was a member here. You meet him here, and then like it just things evolve and
is the right fit with us. And
it works. So
and now he's got a job and he's able to make ends meet while he's in his time of looking for what's next. So yeah. I mean, if I was saying like elevator pitch, what I'm after, I think I'm after a new economic system, and the job training with youth is one part of that. But what the cafe does and the partnerships and collaboration is another part. And I think, today, I think all of us are kind of sick of the economic system we're in. But if we start local, we can like rebuild it from the ground up. And so I think that's a big driving factor. And now I'm after the church trying to figure out how they do their economics in a new way. So that's coming up for our community next year. But really, I think it's how do we develop a new economic system that's going to be local. It's going to be for the town. It's going to be for the city and the people that matter.
Yeah, and I think that local idea, it's not a new idea, but like starting local and having your thing local to make a global impact, right? Yeah. That those people can go out and make global impact and change is a much more powerful experience than being like sitting back on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever your platform that you choose to use to complain about your current life struggles of like what you don't like about the government or whatever that it is. You have no power doing that. Like it's just words. But getting involved in something locally that you can make an impact in your local community to go out, that just doing something is better than just using your thumbs.
Even if you don't have it all figured out. So like on my story, after I started the pairing the youth with the baristas on the coffee cart, then it was like, okay, what's next? And so we built a small coffee cart, which we called Rosebud. That's where the name came from. And so Rosebud became this small cart that we would send out to private events so the youth had a live experience. And we started generating a little income.
Yes.
Right. And so now the business is starting to form, and it's low risk, it's safe, it's under the kind of like the umbrella of the church and things like that. But then eventually, like as you keep going, you just got to do something. Just get out there and try it. Eventually, we got to another crossroad, which was like, now how do we employ, right? Not just train, but how do we employ? I was like, oh, that's okay. Now we have figured out, okay, the best way to do that was with brick and mortar cafe. So then I had to figure out how to write a business plan, raise some money, and then we launched Rosebud Coffee as a brick and mortar space for the job training and employment of the youth, plus the inroads into the community on the economic systems we want to develop and the way we want to impact the local community. And now we've been doing that for 2 years.
Yeah. It's what's really cool is that is what. Have you heard of the book Dollar Startup?
No.
I believe it's that entire premise is like starting a business with $1.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and that is exactly. And now you went from this idea to then, okay, like, but it had a purpose and backing behind it,
and the community, right?
A problem, right? That was like, okay, this doesn't work over here, but this we could still help these people, but in a different way,
a sustainable.
And what is there's this line in this. You have kids, and so maybe you get this reference, but there's this movie called Big Hero 6. It's a Disney film, and that in this film it talks about like their robot creators, right? And they're very, very intelligent kids, and that when they run into problems, that you have to think about the solution differently. You have to think about it. If you keep running into obstacles, to think about it in a different way. Find a new way to get around it instead of running back into the wall all the time. You decided to go, okay, having these youth at this church isn't going to work.
Not long term.
Okay, let's pivot, let's move, let's find something different. Oh, what about this? And next thing you know, like, I just started a brick and mortar business.
Here we are. And I think that you can't underestimate the power of social capital, right? So you can start with $1, but you can start with $1 because you have friends.
Sure.
So you have to have friends, right? Yes. So that's the piece that, especially with like CrossFit and like, Pendulum, like why that matters is because there's a partnership, a friendship. That's social capital, right? So now you also, to develop that social capital, you yourself have to learn to give back. So what I ended up doing along the way as I'm meeting the different nonprofits and kind of surveying the land of what's happening in the area of homelessness, I got involved in helping the city address the homelessness situation. So back in 2013-14, I took on a chair position for a committee with the city of Pasadena. It's called the Faith Community Committee, and its purpose is to gather local faith communities to work in partnership with the city on ending homelessness. And so I've been doing that for about 5-6 years, and that's been what we've seen, that impact, that work together, have a large impact in the city of Pasadena, where we've been able to drop our homeless count by 50% in the last 6 years.
That's massive.
Yeah. So that's my give back, right? That's my way of saying like, hey, this is how I participate. So gathering those churches, and then they have resources, and they have friends, and then it just kind of expands, and you kind of go from there. So can't underestimate the power of social capital, and you got to find your niche of service, your niche of care, volunteer work, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
You got to do that too. Like that's just part of the game.
So do you think, well, let me start by rephrasing that. I was in college, and I was going through a bit of depression. I just didn't know what I wanted for myself or where I was wanting to go. And I ended up just being at a really low point. And my mom had gotten sick and tired of it. And she goes, you're being selfish, and you need to stop serving yourself, and you need to go and serve others.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I think, and that hit me like a ton of bricks, right? And so I did. I went and got involved. And I started giving and serving others in different ways. Received no payment, right? It's just
volunteer service, it's care.
Community service, and it's just that's what I was able to give back. And sure enough, that pulls you out of it, right? Because there is something designed in us that is like, and I think that's part of the culture of today. Like people are just so self-consumed, like on their phones, on their things, that they're like me, and they're wondering why that we're dealing with like so much depression and so much people that are like, it's that we're missing the opportunity of giving and serving others. And that's why I think people really like brands like Tom's, right? Because they're like, oh, 1 for 1. Like if I buy a pair of shoes, that's going to actually help somebody. I'm going to work with them. And that's why those kind of companies have really done well, because it's doing something more than just
and that the whole social enterprise scene. I mean, it's growing. It's still got a long way to go. We're still at the first stages of it, and you're getting the pioneers right now. Not many early adopters, so we still have some way to go. But I think that's like when I'm talking about like the new economics. That's the future, right? Where the work we're doing has meaning, has purpose, has a impact, a social impact. I think of a book, I'm trying to remember the author's name, but called Donut Economics, right? That's the image I'm after. It's a donut where you have an outer circle that protects the environment. That's the line. So your business can't exploit the environment. You protect that. Then you have an inner circle for the same care of people. You don't exploit the people, right? Then the healthy business happens in the ring in between. That model is what we're after, because that's going to change the current model, which is this constant like graph of profit and endless growth, which is killing us all and killing this planet. We have to create a new system, right? We have to redefine what economics looks like. And so the social enterprise model, this donut economic image is really what we're after trying to create. And again, we're at the beginning stages of it, but if enough of us just get out and do it, find that dollar, find then our friends, and then find the way we serve the city or the community, it's possible. So we're on to something, but it's going to take some more work.
So the author is Kate Ratworth, or Kate Raworth.
Yeah.
I just looked it up.
Really
cool.
Great book.
Really, really cool. I think that one of the things that makes you unique, though, is that you are entrepreneurial minded.
Yeah.
Right? And that is something that you like. From previous conversations, you like new things. You like starting things, right?
Things.
Like you're preaching to the choir here. Like, ooh, shiny thing? Like
sign me up. I'll go first.
Right. Like, thank God for my wife, man, because she closes the books for me, like that I leave open. So it's
got someone to shut that door sometimes.
Right. Yeah. Like it's so I appreciate
that's
that,
fair.
but that is something that I think that there needs to be the people like us that are entrepreneurs and that do enjoy starting new things and taking on new projects, but surrounding ourselves with people that are willing to like go, yes, I believe in that vision, right? Yeah. And going like, okay, because the thing is, there may be people listening to this that have been like, man, I had no idea that like, I love youth. I love this. I love, like, I would totally love to be able to help out at Rosebud in some capacity to like, you know what I mean? Like whatever that may look like. And it's just, but there's not everybody can be an entrepreneur, right? It's not for everyone because we do take a beating.
Oh man. And that is like, so you also can't like underestimate the resilience that's required.
Yes.
Yeah. You will take many hits and the pivoting that you have to do. Right. So like, let's say I get into Rosebud, get that space. I'm sharing it with another business because that was like the easy way for me to get in. Keeps my rent down. It's a short-term lease. So if this whole thing fails, I've got an easy out.
Right.
And then it starts going well. The business is working and I'm like, I want to stay. And then that business pulls out. They're done.
Right.
Now I'm left with this massive space I can't afford. I'm like, no. Right. So then you got to pivot. Like, what's next? Right. So you got to think through. Thankfully, I've been able to work with the landlord to make things work while we bring in another business. So one of the things that we're working on that should start in summer of next year will be another business coming in to share the space with us.
Cool.
But that was a pivot, right? Yep. So you gotta. It would have been easy at that moment. Pull the plug. Call it quits and be like, all right, it didn't work.
Yeah.
So you got to be resilient. You got to get back up.
100%. And that's a lot of people probably don't know this about Pendulum, is that when we took over the space, we had plans designed for like the build out of like what we wanted things to look like. And I presented it to the landlord because I wanted showers in here. I wanted showers and a specific kind of like bathroom designation.
Yeah.
But the amount of work that went into that specific thing, and like all the plans, all of the permits, all of like different things, like getting a civil engineer involved, it came out to $260,000. And people are like, for showers? And I'm like, it's not just for showers. $260,000 for this build out, and that build, and I was like, my goodness, like really?
Well, and even for space you don't own.
Correct.
That's a lot of money.
And that was the thing. They were like, you should just buy the building if you're going to do that. And I'm like, I'm not going to spend $260,000 for showers.
Yeah.
And so I went back to the landlord's representation, and he goes, Drew, be an entrepreneur here and do what you got to do to make this place work.
Oh, wow. So you had to pivot.
I had to pivot. Yeah. And it wasn't like it didn't, most people walk in here like, wow, this place is really nice.
Yeah.
It's bootstrapped. You know what I mean? Like it really is bootstrapped.
Yeah.
We do a little bit every little year, and then you get closer to ultimately where we want to be. But, as much as I want to be able to give our people the very best possible thing that I can, unfortunately, capital is still a thing. And I want to be able to also just do what is right for the business, but do what is right for our people. And I had another member say, Drew, I don't necessarily know if you want those problems that come with showers. Yeah. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like cleaning out all the hair. And I'm like, I didn't even think about that. And I was like, you're right, I don't want showers.
Yeah.
But if I could, I totally would. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that was something we're about maybe 9 months into it. I've been bringing in food from a wholesaler close by. Mm-hmm. Social mission based wholesaler for food. Awesome. But again, just, not making any profit on it. Like we're losing money on it. So that was another pivot. It's like, well, how do we do food? Found a young guy coming in, doing food in-house. And now the last 2 to 3 months, he's been killing it. So it's that kind of stuff where you just got to keep watching, keep moving, keep changing.
You try, you make adjustments, and it's like, all right, that worked, that didn't work. Oh, okay.
And always be asking yourself what's next.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the gift of the entrepreneur. Maybe it's our curse as well. Because there's always something that's next.
Right.
So I think then, again, you got to find the right people behind you. So it's even been a pivot for the church. Like, I mean, church culture is shifting drastically. That stuff is changing. So we're constantly asking ourselves what's next. And I can see like a space, like a cafe, like a third space, where if you get the right person behind you, you can create really healthy community in it.
Sure.
And so it kind of applies to all the different things that we're doing. But
that's cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, I really do appreciate you coming on the show.
Sure.
And it's been a lot of fun. And where can people find you?
Yeah. So Rosebud Coffee is located at 2302 East Colorado. So we're in East Pasadena on Colorado Boulevard. Mm-hmm. For those that know the parade route, we're at the very end of it. We've got a great big parking lot behind the shop, and that's off of Roosevelt Avenue. Yep. That's probably the best place to find me and our group. Other part, I'll be over at the church side off of Allen and Del Mar. And then here at Pendulum.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you so much. And I appreciate you, sharing your heart, your story.
Yeah.
And really do appreciate you being here. And as always, thank you guys for tuning in, and continue to live life in motion. See you next time.